I did hit folder.
Okay.
There we go. Cool. Welcome everybody to the July 21st meeting of the Identifying Security Threats Working Group. I don't have too much of an agenda for today. Let me go back and see where we left off last time. We were talking about dashboard security reviews, reproducibility. We did a bit of a demo. We talked about hiring. So I think today either will be light or we can talk about interesting topics. I did get off a call with SafeCode just before this, so we can talk a little bit about what we're planning there, because it would be nice for that to be a joint thing. It's probably more for the security best practices working group, but you know, whatever. It's fun to talk about stuff. Survey. Yeah, so do we have anybody new? Hi, Siraj.
Hi, Michael. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. Hello.
Hi. How are you? Hey, guys.
And I'm so sorry. I'm so terrible with like certain things, and this is one of those. Have you attended these before?
No.
Okay, perfect.
Actually, yesterday. Yeah, sorry. Continue.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, yesterday I joined that open security seminar that was given by David. So I got interested in this. So I searched about it and I was trying to yeah.
Perfect. Could you any relevant background kind of intro that you'd like to give on you?
Yeah. So actually, I've been working as an application security engineer from last 1 year, and this is my first job. So yeah, I have been doing pen testing and security of open source, not exactly open source, but I've been part of DevSecOps team. So that's about me.
Terrific. Welcome.
Thank you.
Cool. And so Amir, any updates on the security review side? I guess we could just kind of go down the list. I saw. Thank you so much for kind of taking that over and just making things happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Couple brief updates. So I did clean up the GitHub a little bit, just close some of the issues that we had already taken care of, just, yeah, as I mentioned, cleaned it up a bit. And then there was the new addition. So thanks to Kevin Backhouse for updating a new review. It was for fail to ban, and there was a nice article associated with it as well. And there were a couple of hiccups with the checks before merging the pull requests, but we got all of that taken care of.
Awesome.
And that is updated in the GitHub. So so far it's going well, and you know, more reviews are welcome in the future. And I'm sure, especially as we do more and as you know, more people hear about this, we'll be getting more content onto the GitHub and making it more refined. So, but so far so good.
That is super.
Can I jump in here real quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, you know, I did comment on that article, and you know, I was very glad to see it. We had some very weird responses from the CI pipeline on that, and I'm not sure I understand the problem. Obviously, it got fixed. So I guess the real issue is I'm curious what the problem was, and more importantly, have we fixed it for the future?
Mm-hmm. To my understanding, it's when we're putting in the metadata,
Mm-hmm.
I think if it's not a very specific input, it will fail the test, basically, the checks that it does. So for example, when I was doing uploading some of ours, and I was putting in, I think, full review as opposed to implementation/full, and that was kind of kicking back as an error. So I think it's just getting the semantics or the wording correct, and
the metadata correct. Yeah, but the error messages, I think it was something like dirty words or something. I go, I don't see any.
Yes, I have a profanity filter. It's a very it's like a caffeinated puppy. So it really it looks for everything, even things that are not profane.
So will Scunthorpe get through?
Yeah, well, only one way to find out. But
there's a town in the UK that nobody can talk about because it keeps getting blocked by everything, and it long predates, I think, even the words.
The code that does the validation is, I just posted in the chat. I should post it here too. I'm sure there are things about the validator that need to be improved.
Yeah.
The quick page form should emit valid things that the validator is cool with, other than profanity. But if not, then it's a bug.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, bugs happen, and I actually understand the need for that sort of thing, because there are bad people on the internet. Who knew? But yeah, it just it seemed like it over triggered.
Yes.
And I couldn't figure out why it was triggering. So it's just a bug, and it's been fixed.
Yeah. And I think actually the profanity probably should just be a warning. In fact, I thought it was. Let me see.
I believe it is as well. Yes.
Okay. So I may have misunderstood the error message then. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, but what was holding it back was basically it was checking for whether it was implementation full, implementation partial, or non-implementation. And I think unless you get it exactly right, it'll basically kick back an error.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, we probably ought to make it clear.
Agreed.
Clear what, as clear as we reasonably can. This field, it has to match this pattern or whatever, so that people can more easily understand it and fix it.
Yep.
But it's great but you know what? It's great that we got one.
That's right.
Yeah, and it seemed like it happened quite organically as well. I've never heard of Kevin before.
Yep.
Yeah, that's great. So, and I made a couple comments, but hopefully I didn't see any screaming and complaining. So I think they're all comments and responses were in good faith, which is great.
Yep, so that's about all I got, but I agree. I think I'll take that as a note to the guidance for inputting the metadata, maybe putting a little more guidance on that, prevent that from happening for other folks, so it's very easy to upload reviews.
Yep.
Yeah, sounds great. Okay. Hey, but you know what? I mean, it's a small success, but it is a success.
Yep, I'll take it. Incremental progress is still progress.
Yep.
I'm going to put that in the notes. David Wheeler. I'll even put.
You quoting yourself?
In quotes. I love it.
Hey, I'll take successes when we can get them.
Yep.
Okay, what else do we have to talk about?
Amir, anything else from your end on the?
That's all.
Okay, cool. On metrics dashboard, I noticed this tweet from Mark Cox, so I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, look at that.
So, hey.
They care. That's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, and probably he's right, because there are some projects that have the security page on GitHub, for example, but they haven't the security MD. I think security.md is better. Maybe we want to improve awareness about this. because people can add also on repo in GitLab, Bitbucket, or self-hosted service. So probably it's not a problem of the metric board. It is a standard that is not still a standard.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think that the way to influence that, so like there's also like security.txt, which is slightly different, but in the same thing. But like having the scorecard because we're just leveraging the scorecard project, having the scorecard project be more aware of the essence of security.md and not the actual implementation on GitHub of security.md. Have it be more general. Scorecard also only looks at GitHub right now. So if you're in GitLab, you don't even get seen.
Okay.
All right, so how's this? So let's write this down, because I think these are perfectly reasonable. As security.txt as well as security.md, right?
Mm-hmm.
And frankly, I would also add docs security dot you know what, I guess I would add further .txt or really HTML.
Yes. Yeah, I would say whatever. I
mean, security.anything is probably too much, but I would hope that most people could handle one of those formats.
Yeah. So right now it looks like the scorecard looks for security.md or security.rst in either doc or docs. Okay, so they're trying.
So what are they currently doing?
Here, I'll just post a link. Security.md, security.rst, and security.rst can be in the doc or in the docs folder.
Okay, and this is all part of the where is that getting called? Security RST. Why is that? Equal fold. I presume that's a case insensitive match.
Could be.
Does anyone know what the main problem with like the Apache projects are? Because I don't see a security dot anything on there. Like I went to like Apache /Hadoop, for example. I don't see a docs folder or any like security dot. So I was just curious, like where that tweet was.
Well, I don't know where that tweet comes from, but I mean, Apache has a number of default policies, but they don't necessarily get reflected as files within their repos.
Yeah.
And you know, and so therefore tools that do searches against a repo aren't going to find that, obviously. And it sounds like their solution, which I love from the point of view of automation, is, you know, instead of expecting everyone to know organizational policies of all organizations, good luck. They're going to add those files, and it could be as simple, by the way, those files could be as simple as a link to the Apache master, you know, policy, organization-wide policy.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you know what? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Matt raised his hand on Google, on Microsoft Team. Maybe he want to talk.
Yeah, so I'm an Apache committer. I chaired a project for 4 years through incubation to graduation, and I can tell you that if a project is graduated, it has followed a set of security processes to secure all the repos. It is not mandated or required, and there is no communication to any of this effect that we're going to be asked to create a security security.md file. In fact, if you were to search my project, you would find a security.md file under the docs folder. However, it describes security for containers running in the project, not for the project itself. You'll get false positives.
Right.
So my thinking has been in terms of trust that indeed you can at trusted you have a trust assertion level for a foundation based upon the processes enforced on projects that achieve graduation, because Apache fits that bill. You cannot graduate. It has very strict processes for how you commit, for participation, for nomination, for waiting periods, for voting, for release processes, for signed releases, sign keys, key strength. They're the best org I've seen in terms of, and it could be used as a stellar example of how you would apply a foundation-wide policy.
Well, I mean, one thing we could do would be try to find evidence that a project is part of an organization that we have confidence in, that supports it. I mean, it sounds like they're going to solve it a different way, and maybe we don't need to do that in this case, because I think the challenge is always, not all organizations do that, of course.
I'm saying that's economies of scale is talking about in other work groups. So if you're at a foundation, the foundation should place requirements on their projects. So instead of attacking, tens of thousands of projects, attack it at the foundation level who has enforcement capabilities. They can block releases being published. They can block projects from graduating and reaching status. It means something to people in terms of trust that's an Apache graduated project. In fact, they do not let you release binary artifacts. They make you release source code, and everything. The process itself could be, well referenced and documented. It is possible. We could go to CNCF. CNCF is trying to do things. They just released, Kubernetes just released their own SBOM tool, and they have a work group dedicated to this. So you can work with a few number of people at the big foundations and get a large bang for your buck.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I agree with that. That said, I do think that there's value even for Apache projects to have within their repos hey, wait a minute, we're an Apache project or CNCF project or whatever, and we require certain things, and we record this information in a conventional file so that it's super easy to find that information. So that a new committer, because frankly, not everybody commits to who proposes a patch to an Apache project really understands Apache.
What's the last? What's the last? I don't understand the last statement.
I was saying, I think it's still useful to have something like a security.md file within a repo, even if it's an Apache project, because people new to that project may not know all the Apache processes. Oh, look, right there, we're going to tell you stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for cross-referencing, foundation to project, project to foundation, absolutely. Yeah. But again, at the foundation level, Apache infrastructure is very aggressive in implementing and locking down repos and setting policies, checks and policies on repos. They could easily force enforcement. But you also have to consider that most of the legacy projects still use SVN as well. So, you have to. So how do you scan SVN? So,
actually, that's really not a problem. SVN is actually one of the easier things to scan. I'm
just saying that that the types of files and things, there's just be consideration. I think security.md. I think that what we're seeing in terms of bills of materials and security companies is that they use dot files. So I think that relying on markdown.
So what files? Doc files?
Dot files, dot security, or dot white source, or dot twisted block, okay. Dot whatever. So I think that that's a better convention to if we're offering best practices, we should suggest using some OSSF, maybe dot file even if they want to go that far. So.
Yeah.
All right. So coming back to this, obviously, the metrics thing is because it's sucking in data from the scorecards. we clearly want to propose some changes to scorecards to improve the quality of the results. So what should we, is there anything from this discussion that we should propose back to the scorecard folks?
And obviously this conversation is not really about Apache, but just because that's the one that came up. So for the Apache projects that don't have a security MD file, if they had a .security file that we didn't know about, so scorecard isn't looking for, then that would be a bug back to scorecard to say, hey, security files count as security MD. So if you see that, flag it as yes. What I suspect is more likely is that there is no security MD file because it's implicit that Apache Project Foo falls under the global Apache security reporting process, infrastructure process, all that, which makes complete sense. But I would still say we should then, I think Mark may have, we may not need to do anything in this case, but in theory, we should reach out to Apache and say, hey, have you heard about security MD? We think that maybe it might make sense to have this be as a global default and maybe push it down or whatever.
And clearly having interaction. In this case, I think it's clear that somebody thinks Apache should make a minor tweak, really not changing the Apache policies, just making what the policies are very clear within the repo and in an automated, so that can be detected automatically. And that's great. And so I don't think in this case we need to make changes for this. I do agree that there may be some other changes where it might make sense. Oh, we detect it's Apache or whatever, and make some, some other changes.
So taking it next step further, do we have guidance on what should be in said file?
There is guidance that exists. Let's see here.
And even more,
I don't think we have pitched it.
Yes, I'm saying is that if we approach people, we should be prepared to say, here's what should be in a top-level markdown file, and you can choose the format. But more importantly, we should have a roadmap where we get to a more prescriptive format. Like I'm saying, say security MD is great today, but here are all the things we're looking for. And if you want to be scanned by us, and you want us to be completely clear and have no lack of uncertainty about how we're communicating and evaluating your project, you can create a .OSSF file or something like that that follows some schema or something like that we know, that is a clear indication. So that's what I would like to see.
Yeah. I will say that at least for there's several different other documents that talk about security.md files. And I think the key thing here is, at least for many folks, is how to report vulnerabilities.
Right. So I wrote the global one. I think I wrote it. Whatever. I was involved in the writing of the standard one for Microsoft. I
think the format's important because what people are trying to do with both Cyclone DX and SPDX going forward, hopefully, maybe not, depending on how Security Profile 3.0 turns out, you include vulnerability contact information. So it's nice to have a means to map whatever we ask them to produce to an insertable. Translate that to an XML or JSON that can be inserted into an SBOM. That'd be awesome.
Absolutely, 100%.
But
so security.text, I think, might. We may decide that security MD is the wrong thing. We really need it because security MD is not inherently structured.
Yeah, I think it needs to be. It needs to have a U. We need to basically have a U at a namespace that people clearly know it has a new purpose. It's not like what I have in my project. It's like, how do you run your container securely? You know, exactly.
Yeah, by the way, security.txt is actually something different. That's for websites, not for repos.
Yes.
And it's not as, I mean, the security MD is similar to a vulnerability disclosure policy, or it is more similar to the security.txt where people use a standard format to share the contact, to share the PGP key, to share the vulnerability disclosure policy. I mean, we need to define what is the security MD at this point. I suppose, I mean, for me, the security.md is a sort of vulnerability disclosure policy in the repo. This means that there is a sort of agreement between the company or the project and the security researcher, and there is, of course, a security contact, but there is also if a particular project want to share the scope or the bug that they want to receive for many reasons. And I don't know if security.md is similar to security.txt, not only for website or not. You can add a similar format also in the repo, but security.txt asks you to have a page with the vulnerability disclosure policy.
Yeah, there's actually something by Trey Waters that proposes a security README file, which is basically what
And at the same time, I agree with Michael. I mean, I know that some projects have a different system in place, similar to security.md, but probably the dashboard can help a big project to create standard. And like security.txt is a standard now, maybe we want to have a similar standard in for the metric board and for open source project. If Apache want to have a better score, they just need to create a little security.md. When we can talk about the format, I agree that the format is important, not the structure, just the requirement. I mean, the security MD need to contain this information, bullet point, bullet point, bullet point. But
I mean, I would love to create like just a skeleton of what we expect and some draft of some new format that we can hand to OSTIF if we're paying OSTIF $60K to secure a project they propose, which then they propose to solve. But they would institute that so we can showcase that at the end of the
day. I agree. Yes.
Cool.
Maybe we need. Sorry,
we have an action item. I think this would be very useful because without it, all that anybody can say is that a file called security.md exists.
We want to talk with the team vulnerability disclosure, or we think that is a different topic?
We should sync with them.
Okay.
I don't know that they have anything going on around this, but I think it's actually perfect and kind of fits the when OpenSSF started, we were a little bit concerned about everybody kind of being whatever it's called, pipelined into their own working group where all you do is stuff that's in your working group. And we really wanted projects to be kind of cross working group. I think this one fits us, vulnerability disclosures and best practices. So maybe via, go ahead, David.
And you're just saying, if the other group wants to pick it up and do all the work, and all we needed to do was complain, that's fine too.
Let's do. Well, what we need like a chief complainer.
Can we create a project that recommends what should go in the file and actually work towards some type of schema? Because what I'd love to, if we're gonna make an effort to do this, we should make sure all other groups have an ability to comment, because immediately I want to throw in an example of what the schema is for contact information for an SBOM. And I also want to make sure that people have a place to stick if they have a CPE or a SWID or a Perl package URL, that they can slot that in there as well. So I'd love to start, working collectively against some issue or some document in a repo, maybe we could incept it ourselves in our own repo. So,
I will note that there already are, although I think schema may not be the right phrasing, but kind of a required formats and contents, so that there's agreement on what's being
I mean,
included.
schema,
Schema in the
automation.
broad sense.
No, schema in an actual schema sense.
Yeah, if it ends in .md, it's a markdown file. So,
I'm not saying it's .md. I'm saying it's a dot file of it with an extension, with maybe no extension.
yeah, which is not what people are doing. So that would be a break from that would be a new convention. You got to convince people to apply.
Yeah, I thought that's what we were talking about. We're trying to get people to do things a new way, the better way.
Is it better? I'm questioning it, frankly, because my experience has been, if you want to get
people
to do
file the deterministic, when I run automated tools against it, deterministic tells me I can reference this process procedures, content info for vulnerabilities. I can identify my project software identifier, my SBOMs, and things like that from a strict schema-based file that I can directly use to import into an SBOM or other report. That's gold. That's the grail. I mean, that's the grail. That's the binding document that brings all these processes together.
The challenge is you got to get people to do it. If it's too hard, it won't happen.
Well, I thought this is the problem to solve that security people have failed to do over the last 20 years, because we have a collective set of principles now with cloud native and source code control management system, and GitHub kind of as a central nervous system. There's a set of processes and methodologies that are expected now for any software development lifecycle. And we're by matter of fact, we're talking about Markdown and security.mt as a convention, looking for it. So clearly we can do better. The time has come for us to do better.
Well, I tell you what, why don't you pitch it? What would that be? And I'll point you, by the way, towards for example, this Trey Waters.
If you go to Apache Foundation, you will get attentive ears, and the infrastructure team will be able to help roll that out to all the Apache projects. And I, as Apache chair for my project, would gladly do that. When I have to report to my quarterly board report, if they say your board report, you don't have this file, and then I get a negative board report, then people will take action. Absolutely, we can do better.
I think we wanted to do broader than just Apache Software Foundation. There's a lot.
That was an example, David.
Okay. Got that.
I can go to CD Foundation with Tecton Project. I have people working there. I can go to CNCF. We have any number of people working in Kubernetes. We can talk to the security tools working group. We can get this incepted. Are you saying we shouldn't try? Is that what you're saying?
No, okay. When you say schema, to me, you're implying an additional level of complexity, which sometimes is exactly what's needed. But we need to make sure that extra complexity usually means it's harder to get deployed. So we got to make sure that if we're going to accept that extra complexity, that it's worth the squeeze, as it were.
If I can throw my thoughts here, I think that this is all good, and we should absolutely try. We're not committing to doing anything other than thinking about it and coming up with something that we think makes sense, and then talking to people about it. So I think that's all good. Second, I think that there's no reason why security and security MD will live on forever, because enough projects have it where it's not going anywhere. Having the better .security whatever .yaml or something with more structured stuff means that we can infer better things out of projects that adopt that. And then we can say, hey, using security MD, that's terrific. Have you thought about this other thing? And here's the advantages of it. And for Apaches, the Apaches of the world, we think that's the better approach. You may still need something readable, because the purpose of security MD is that when you open up an issue, it says, hey, you're opening up a security bug. Here's our policy. Here's our textual thing that you as a human being can read. And there's no reason why the structure can't include that too, but.
Yeah, amen. 100. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so how about this? I opened up an issue in our working group. We can create this as a project. We could do whatever, but just as far as getting something done, like right this second, there's the issue. Matt, you are super passionate about this. Would you like to just own this and drive this?
I'm passionate because this is my life. This is my life
Wonderful.
right now, because it seems like I'm being gravitating towards the CISO office, and because I have so many projects in open source in various places, I'm being asked on what we should be doing. So
terrific. What's your
I feel like you sounded and described the onset of the call, Michael.
wonderful. Matt, what's your GitHub username? I can just tag you.
Emmertkowski. Or Emmertkaus. My internal and external one.
Like, here, if you just type it in the chat,
Sure, I'll put the link.
Cool, awesome, cool. This is super. Okay. Let's see. The other thing I wanted to talk about was this kind of SafeCode survey, which is definitely not fully baked. It's like still water in the oven. But what we've been throwing around, and so we've been meeting twice a month for the past, I don't know, 4 or 5 months, to think about how OpenSSF and SafeCode could work together. And we're throwing around a lot of different ideas, and this is me with my SafeCode hat on now, because as SafeCode, we want to. I mean, we're part of OpenSSF. We want to contribute. We want to do the right thing, and but we kind of represent different audiences a little bit, but we all have the same challenges, which is why we're here. Where we've kind of coalesced is that we're thinking of something like kind of like an OWASP top 10, but for the security practices that open source developers, particularly small and medium-sized projects. So this would not be the Apaches of the world, or at least we wouldn't like consciously target them. But instead, like all of the single and like 2 or 3 person projects out there. What are the top 10 things that you should do? Like enable 2-factor auth, run static within CI, have a security MD, et cetera. And like kind of articulating and providing links and existing guidance where they exist, and then kind of evangelizing that as a hi, you're a small to medium sized open source project. We would suggest looking at this checklist to get into the whatever 80th percentile of security goodness with relatively little effort.
I mean, frankly, although it's not quite the list of 10, I mean, the CI best practices badge has already got that basic list. So, I mean, if there's something egregious that's missing, I'd love to hear about it regardless. But it's already got the 2FA. It's already got these other things, and it's got automated detections for not all of them, but many of them. If anybody knows how to detect 2FA users, I'd love to know externally. But for a lot of the rest of it, that's already on.
So the okay, yeah. So I don't want to lose that thread, so I'm going to hold on to that thread and just continue on a little bit longer, but then we'll come back to it, I promise.
Okay.
Because I really don't want to redo stuff. And if it's just a matter of like, if nothing needs to be done, I have lots of other things that I could be doing. But at the same time, what we were kind of considering was we were going to start with a survey, and the survey it is not going to be duplicative of the Harvard survey, because we've been looking at that, and I think that is definitely half the story. What we really want to see is like static analysis. On the journey of static analysis from I've never heard of it to I've heard of it, but I don't see the value. I've tried it. It doesn't work on my platform. It's just too many false positives, too expensive, blah, 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 all the way up to like it's fully integrated into CI and I get alerts and I take action on them. Where do you fit in that spectrum? And then the next thing, like two-factor auth. Like, do you use two-factor auth? Nope, never heard of it. Or yes, of course I do. Like, who? Well, how, I can't possibly not. Et cetera. So as you come up with practices that we think are important, where do teams, like, where are the, where do they fall off the journey towards goodness? And then can we, what could we give as guidance in order to bump them from level N to level N+1 or N+2? Because if we see that, for instance, most open source, and I think this came out in the Harvard study, that like more than half of open source developers don't use static analysis at all. That's interesting because for the vast majority of open source projects, at least the ones hosted on GitHub, static analysis is like a click or two away for languages that it supports, et cetera. So, you know, perhaps there's an evangelization opportunity there. Whereas if we found out that two-factor auth doesn't work because everybody publishes to, I don't know, pick a package manager that in theory doesn't support two-factor auth, well, that's really interesting too. So that's kind of what we were thinking. So the difference between that and the, I think sourcing the questions, and I'm sorry, I'm talking as I'm thinking, so I apologize. Sourcing the questions from the best practice badge, I think totally makes sense, or sourcing the domains, two-factor auth, static, do you do crypto, etc. But what I don't know if the data in the best practice badge will tell me what's needed. It'll tell me like the projects that have opted into it, the ones that don't do two-factor auth. I could infer that two-factor auth is hard for one reason or another. But it doesn't tell me the rest of the universe that hasn't opted into. So it's kind of a selection bias on that.
Fair enough. Although to be fair, you know, you can say, hey, the selection bias is for projects which are at least trying. And so, hey, if it's hard for a project that's trying, that might give you some additional information. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, and that's, I mean, you know, not all projects use GitHub. So, you know, Absolutely. Just looking on GitHub is a bias also. So, you know, it's hard to eliminate all those. You do what you can. Actually, you know, I'm going to post the just for your amusement, Michael. Yeah. I'm going to post in the chat the CI criteria, and I also just posted a link. I actually just gave a presentation on how to develop secure software, which primarily points people off to the OpenSSF course and CII badge. It mentions, it mentions metrics OpenSSF.org. You'll be shocked to hear. So, trying to give at least people a you know, places to start. Yeah, maybe I should copy paste this into our notes since everything we put in the chat disappears in seconds.
I'm not even getting updates in the chat. So.
Oh well, that's not an improvement. Yeah. Okay, so let's see here. So wow, and when I copy, weird stuff happens. Okay, so if you just want to see the criteria, there they are. Yeah. And then I'll just note the the presentation and a link if people want to point to that. Obviously, it's 45 minutes plus 45 minutes questions, so you can't answer all possible things, but at least you can give people a good place to start.
Is this all of the criteria?
That is all the criteria for the passing badge.
Perfect.
Now,
Yeah,
there's actually 3 levels, so this is for the passing badge. Now, that's all the criteria. A lot of these have additional information that basically explain, common ways to do it. Yeah. So basically, oh wait, how would I do X? Well, there's something called details, which you can you can click on additional information. It'll show the details and rationale and stuff like that. But yeah, for the actual criteria, that's all. It's more than 10, but it's not 1,000. That was very much, and this comes back to my earlier comment of I think that we need to not just have good criteria, but do our darndest to make it easy as possible to really apply. Because the best criteria that no one uses is worthless. So we got to find ways, and I think we can be creative and find ways, but we got to find ways to make it easy to apply to the many folks who just, I got limited time and tomorrow always seems to be tomorrow.
Totally agree with this.
Yeah, I mean, we were thinking literally like having the target be a single page infographic that you could print out and tape to your monitor if you live in the analog world. So to have it be, and not to have it be a half a point font, for it, but have it be here, yes, there's 100 things that you need to worry about, but you really need to worry about and 10 is just a nice number because it just kind of it brings brings branding. But yeah, so let me go back to SafeCode and see, maybe it's just a matter of iterating on this and saying, okay, so you know what, I don't know.
I'm sorry, I'm not quite sure I'm following you now, Michael. My apologies.
I'm not following me either. So.
Oh wow.
Cool.
Okay.
So go back. Yeah, and the last part, metrics OpenSSF. I haven't made any changes. I do need to refresh the data. I really need to figure out why the data doesn't refresh automatically. It's extremely frustrating.
Yeah, that's extremely weird. I don't understand. I mean, the one thing computers are easy at is doing things with a cron job.
And cron is running. The cron job kicks off. Nothing happens. And
really?
it's as if it's erased from existence.
Is it possible that all the data is being run, the data is getting generated, but it's being stored in some container that then just evaporates when your job ends?
So technically, the cron job lives in the VM.
Okay.
And the cron job runs Docker exec blah 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 whatever to refresh within the proper container. So
fine.
It works great when I just log in and type etc cron d refresh the whatever. So it's super frustrating. But
well, maybe put a cron job on your own computer.
But no, so
that does seem like the wrong way, doesn't it?
Yeah. I do have a work item open, or an issue open against Metric Dashboard project that we can give to the developer that we hire as soon as we can hire a developer to work on this. So it'll get resolved eventually.
Yeah, Mike, I'm sorry. I took a look at that and couldn't figure it out, what the issue was either. I kept running it. For me, I redirected everything, and it said I had an issue with the security key or something, which I definitely had from Django, and I redirect. It said it was doing nothing, and I redirected standard error somewhere, and that's what I was getting. I don't know if I honestly on.
Okay.
equally as
That
confused.
you know what? You just throw that note in the issue, and that way the next time we take a look at it, I'll have that in my head. Yeah, I mean it's possible that it's lost environment variables or path or something silly, and then just errors out.
Yeah, but if it doesn't have the right security token, it may have a token, but not the right token. I guess it would make sense that would just whatever it doesn't end up where you want it to.
It should, yeah. With computers, all things are possible.
Yes, and most of them are wrong.
That's true. But Luigi, you posted a note in Slack that I just wanted to make sure that we got to about the API.
Yes, I tried to create a GitHub action to have automatic output from the API. At the moment, we have a single endpoint for packages, and probably it's not. There are all information, more information than in the dashboard, for example. But sometimes they are not so clear because the API are not human friendly, and there is no description of a particular result, and we have now the same output for different projects. For example, if I have an endpoint, I expect there is the same number of value, maybe with null value, with all -1 value. But if you try different projects, there are different number of response. For example, I can share with you the two different projects. One is Arduino client, Arduino CLI, sorry, and one is the Kubernetes. Kubernetes is really good project with the best standard and security best practice, but the JSON are really different. And so if you want to create a script, it can be not so easy to do this. I need to add a lot of exception, for example, to handle it. And maybe we want to create I don't know, more scriptable endpoint to automate the work, because the dashboard is good, but maybe professional or big companies or just people that want to check different projects want to automate, maybe using CI and the API.
Yep, I think 100%. The API literally took about 10 minutes to do, so it is literally whatever, like, this is as close to the raw database representation as you can get. So, the database is just key value, and the key is dotted to kind of namespace it a little bit. But, so the one I'm highlighting here says that the criticality, the data we get from criticality, it just has a field called closed issues count. I don't interpret that. That is whatever it gives me has this value. And on the Grafana side, that's where Grafana knows that closed issue, that this key here means something that you should convey. So this is very, let's say, untyped. I think having more typing there makes sense, but then that increases the coupling between the different pieces that we have to know about exactly what we're getting from the different data sources. So the advantage to this, I think, is that if, like, Scorecard added a bunch more data, so it's in here, we didn't need to do a thing. If we structure it, then we need to figure out, like, what do we do about the things that we don't know about? Like, do we? And so I think it's all good. Yes, we should.
It's not urgent. I mean, they are useful in my opinion right now. At the same time, I don't know if we want to create. I mean, if we want to create a sort of API service. At the moment, there is just an endpoint, and it is enough for Grafana, for people that need to use it. And I mean, I can work on it. It is a JSON, so it's not a big problem. At the same time, I don't know if we want to share a sort of Swagger.json or similar, containing the information for human, not for machine, of course. But I mean, it's not urgent. It is creating good APIs, in my opinion, is not so easy. They are still good, in my opinion, are really good because I can use them. At the same time, I am, I don't know. I think that make security accessible with no friction can help people to use the tool.
Yeah. So yes, what might be helpful here is throw a lot of your thoughts into an issue under the project security metrics thing. And that way, as the developer comes on board, we can have them look at that, or we can, or you can, or whoever can. But we can kind of just track it and not lose it. And because the API is already versioned, we can just make it version 2, and then we're good to go. So all is happy.
Thank you.
Awesome. We are out of time. Thank you all very much for the great conversation today. Looking forward to next time and making progress in especially in the structured security MD. I'm interested in what comes out of that. So thank you all very much. Have a great rest of your whatever day today is, Wednesday. Bye all.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.